I was happily reading along today in this book called Spiritual Talks and ran across this paragraph that I've been, sitting and thinking about. It was a challenging one for me. And I know that so often I want spiritual life to be lovey-dovey and casual, and isn't this fun, and isn't this a nice walk with the beloved, and all of Hafiz's poetry along those lines. And every now and then you run into a zinger that kind of really lets you know the intensity of spiritual life and the importance of spiritual life. And here it says, the author of the Yoga Sutras says that by carefully persisting in practice for a long time and without intermission, the concentration becomes steady. We must attain to a steady concentration, the ability to control the mind, because in order to remove your consciousness from the cycles of thinking, and to find that place of silence, you have to have that discipline to be able to turn off the thought and to hold that space. He says we must attain to steady concentration. The young plant needs to be hedged around, which means when we're beginning, when we're first learning, we need to take into account lots of protections, and that's where we avoid hanging out with company that's contrary to our ideal. That's the reason that monks kind of pull back from family and friends. In the beginning, it's not the ideal to judge people and to separate yourself from people and to have people that you don't want to hang out with and whatnot. That's not the ideal, but it's a necessary step in the beginning because it's so easy for us to be carried along into our vices and desires and things that are hanging us up. And he says the young plant needs to be hedged around, but when the tree is big, it requires that protection no more. So you see, that's something to be transcended. Religious people, spiritual people are not supposed to end up dividing the world and liking some and not liking others, hanging out with some and judging others. That's a beginner's place, only to protect the seed of your spirituality, the young tender plant that needs all the help it can get. And once through your dedication and through your practice, you transcend that, so that even if an elephant is tied to a tree, that tree is going to be fine. But when it's a sapling, it can be trampled over by even a house cat. So that's the idea. And he says we must have steadfastness to our ideal. We've got to be serious about reaching our ideal, this universal love, this universal compassion, this idea of no aversions and attractions, but being able to have that equanimity of tranquility inside, of peace, and being able to share that and give that with those around us. As soon as we decide that a certain course is right, as soon as you find a path that you think is the one for you, that you're going to undertake, he says we must resolve to give up our entire life for it. We must have decision in our character. We've got to be decisive. In the words of Jesus, our yeses have to be yes and our noes have to be no. So in the beginning of spiritual life, if you're starting out, take all the precautions, all the measures to protect that tender plant. But know that that's not the ideal, that's not the goal, that in the end our goal is to be equanimous in our love, to be able to love people who are unlovable as much as we love people who are lovable.